All right, coming back. We wanted to have our second part of our discussion, talking about hobbies and sciences. There's been some scientific studies that go into how they're good for us. So Tunde, there was a piece we'll have in the show notes that talked about this from Self Magazine. What were your thoughts in terms of hobbies? And then obviously during the course of this, we're going to talk a little bit about your hobbies.
You don't want to know about all that. No, it was, look, this is one of those, to me, it was very straightforward. Maybe I got confirmation bias. That's my own psyop.
There you go. There you go.
But no, because I didn't assume hobbies would be somewhat negative or anything like that. And it just kind of, I'm glad that this article went a little bit deeper in some of the, with the psyop thing, with the psychology behind how we benefit from having hobbies. Yeah. And also the idea that, almost anything that you like can be considered a hobby. After watching this, reading this, I was thinking, when I play Red Dead Redemption on my PS5, that's a bit of a hobby, right? It's a way for me to get some escapism and escape from the everyday life. So, yeah, man, it was interesting. And I think, the idea of having a hobby is not something I think that society has ever really looked at as negative, but I think we should probably, again, as a way for us to deal with things like stress, mental health, all the stuff that we know are just things that we want to help people continue to work on and not see as a stigma, let's say, in our society. I think maybe having, just like people promote walking as a way of just getting out, getting your head clear, and that can actually, a certain amount of exercise every week can actually help with lowering mild depression. I think the idea of promoting people to just do things and have hobbies and find interests could do the same thing.
Do things at their leisure. And I disagree with you. I think that there is a negative stigma sometimes to having a hobby, like in our go world, a lot of times, hobbies can be seen as a wasting time, or just kind of, just being a slacker or something like that. If you have something, because one of the important things I think you got to take from it is,
that's because you hang around successful people. When you're me,
it's like, that's
all we do is chill around here. I don't do anything.
No, you're not wrong. No, I'm an attorney. And so I remember the pressures that now I work for myself now, so that's a little different, but I remember the pressures in terms of if you're doing hobbies, so to speak, if you're doing things leisurely, intentionally to kind of get away mentally from the space, you're like, that's like, oh, well, why aren't you billing time? Why aren't you, this is crazy, so it's like, I do see where, the idea of a hobby could see like, oh yeah, the person who considers themselves very regimented and trying to, just really push the envelope all the time can see that as a detriment. But, like when you have a society where that's people are just going to the bone all the time, you can see how what that will do is make people more tense, make people more combative and so forth. And so the benefits of hobbies, which you can imagine to some degree, but you're talking like brain chemistry benefits, like having certain types of hobbies, the accomplishing of things is a dopamine hit. Well, you can get that instead of drugs, like that. That's so it can take the place of other things that we use chemicals, or alcohol or things like that to mimic in our own system now. So having hobbies can, in a sense, I'll put it the other way. What really stood out to me in this is that the absence of hobbies and what hobbies can do for you seem to lead to some of the ills in society that we observe in terms of substance abuse, in terms of compulsive behavior, primarily because we're chasing those same benefits that you could get from a hobby through these other behaviors, like that end up becoming things that are detrimental for you. So that to me was one of the biggest takeaways I had from this.
Yeah, no, and I agree. It's you say some interesting things there. Number one is because I'm thinking about when I was younger, we both come from professions that are pretty intense when you're young and you're in the big environment. So you're right. If you're a young attorney at a law school and you go to a big law firm, one of the major ones, it's the 2,000 hours a year.
Yeah.
And, you got to be billing, right?
Not of working, but 2,000 hours of billable time.
Yeah, exactly.
Which,
and so
that's just, kind of inside baseball. every time you spend at the office isn't necessarily going to be billable if you're an attorney. So just there's it built in that you would need to spend more time at the office.
Apparently, the attorneys I've hired my whole life, though, treat it that way. That's a whole other story. When I get my bill, I'm like, hold on. You charged me 0.15 hours for an email? That didn't take you 0.15 hours.
Turn on your computer?
I can't stand your profession, dude. I'm just happy to say that
alone,
on the show
man.
with a smile.
You're not alone.
No, but the reason I bring it up is just, and I'm a financial guy, right? And again, I was just telling someone yesterday I was talking to that my whole 20s was like I showed up at the office at 7:30. I didn't go home till 9:30, 10 o'clock. And that was like that whole decade. Like this is my first 10 years in the industry. And so you're right. What suffers is the leisure time and the ability to do other things, which then, and I think our society has gotten better in the recent period than it was maybe in the 80s and 90s when, working and all that was really seen as a virtue more so. And if you weren't constantly busy with work, it was more of a moral failing. I think with the amount of mental health.
Greed is good mentality.
Yeah, no, you're right. From the 1985 movie Wall Street, it's kind of like that set. It was like a cultural meme for a while, right? And I think what's happened, though, is kind of like we talk about other topics in the past, like food, right? Fast food and some of these things, processed food. It takes a while for the society to realize because you have to let the bad stuff play out. And I think, in the last 20 years or so, there's been a lot of just positive research about just on human psychology and how detrimental some of our working habits have been and how they lead to other negative offshoots in our society. So, for example, kids not being seeing their parents as much because, the parents are working. That may cause some dysfunction in the child as they get older. So on and so forth.
As a result of that, the concepts like work-life balance and, all that kind of stuff may have become more prominent, or just flexible schedules, like for parents and so forth. So, you can see how society reacts to different things.
How many people have burnout and depression and mental health breakdowns because they were working too much, just in the office. And, at another nation, we saw that a lot. I remember a lot of that news used to come out of Japan in the 80s and 90s where people literally were just dying at their desk because they were just overworking themselves. So, the idea of having a hobby, having something that is not part of your regular stress and where you're trying to earn a living and all that, I think is healthy.
But engaging for you because, while, the idea of what we were seeing with the absentee parent is harmful for society and harmful for kids, the hobby piece we're starting to see now in terms of something that is intentional and also engaging for you, but not your profession, again, that was that time waster or make you feel bad kind of mentality that I guess we're coming out of a little bit. That because part of being a hobby is that it's engaging for you mentally. It's not just having a hobby is not just sitting there watching TV. That's you're not going to get the same benefits that we're talking about with hobbies from something like that. And so, all right, so for you, I know that you got a Lego table in your garage, you got so what would you, in terms of hobbies?
That's a good point. Yeah. That when we're talking about the parenting, that's what I realized too, is that the hobby also for those of us that are busy parents kind of with the work schedule, making sure you fit the hobby in depending on, the age of your kids and all that. If they're old enough or young enough, the 25-year-old kid might not want to sit there and build Legos with me, right? but and neither will a 1-year-old. But my 12-year-old does. So to your point, he's starting to get a little bit too old for that now, actually. But we had a whole Lego thing and a city and all that. I when I was a kid growing up, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and I used to make model airplanes. And it was interesting during the pandemic. I bought one of the plastic kits from online. They got delivered. And I sat there whenever we were on lockdown. I made it and I had fun. And it looked like crap. So I got competitive with myself and shit. I got to make this thing look good again. So I got this, bought an airbrush and I bought the sandpaper and all that. And I ended up making some pretty cool looking planes. And then another hobby I picked up was painting canvases. Yeah. So the canvas, for those that are watching our YouTube video, the canvas behind me, I did this one myself. Yeah. And I'm not saying it to brag. I'm just more saying that I just realize that, all this stuff helps me because when I'm painting a canvas, my mind is relaxed, is somewhere else.
But not just that. Even now, talking about how what's sitting there behind you is something that you did, you get emotional satisfaction out of that. So it's an ongoing thing that, like, obviously you wouldn't have.
I'm looking at the craziness of that pattern. And
this is what goes on in your mind.
That used to be in my head. Now it's all on the canvas. It goes great. I got it all out.
I mean, I think you made an excellent point, though, in terms of when if you have children and they're of a certain age, how or the things that you can involve your kids in are good for hobbies. You know, like having a hobby that's something you can involve your kids in. Like for me, I know coaching sports was something that I was able to pick up, and it fit because it was a part of. Now, you know, you have to do it take the right approach. I'm not trying to coach them to be, you know, professional athletes, but coach them to learn the things that you can learn from competitive or not, you know, like rec league team sports and something like that. Things like that. There's a lot of personal, like, and social things you can learn about yourself and about how you interact with other people. So focusing on that kind of stuff with my own kids. And so it became something for me that was engaging and that, you know, was a responsibility and something I had to do outside of work. But, you know, it also, though, allowed me to spend the time with my kids and so forth. So choosing hobbies, depending on where you are in your life, that work also with, you know, kind of family, you know, dynamics is something that's, well, I know of other people that they'll do things, you know, with their spouse, you know, like, oh, they'll do a painting class with their spouse or things like that. And that's a way to bring people together in that way, you know, in terms of your own family. So all of that stuff. Though,
even just nature, you know, walking around in the woods and hiking and all that. And the one thing, though, I would say is from kind of the standpoint of looking at hobbies, one of my friends, he came over one day and he saw me doing one of my model airplanes, and he saw how I was all focused and, you know, trying to not get the paint and the glue on something. And he goes, Tunde, I'll never forget this. It was pretty profound. He goes, you know what you're doing right now? And I go, what? He goes, you're doing active meditation. I never heard that term. And I was like, wow, that's pretty profound, because I'm one of those guys who does have a brain that with a bunch of this crap, you know, that's on this painting behind me going on. And I've tried to meditate. I mean, I'm sure if I really tried and I sat there and kept going every day for minutes and minutes, but I'm the type of guy that can't go more than 5 minutes because I keep thinking about stuff. Yeah. So when he said that you're practicing active meditation, it made me realize, like, yeah, he's actually right. I don't have to sit there and get my mind totally still in the way I thought I needed to for meditation, in the traditional way we think of sitting in a quiet room without distraction and all that with meditation. By focusing intensely on something, whether it be the painting, a model, whether it be when I'm shooting hoops, when I'm trying to relax, and watching the ball go through the net, there's a certain level of your mind is somewhere else. And it is a sort of active meditation. I just thought that was a great term. So I want to
I mean, it shows.
Before we leave, you can't put me on a spot. What's your hobbies?
I just gave you one, man. I just gave
gave you one sports. Coaching, but I gave you like 5. So what's the other?
Man, well, I didn't ask for 5. I asked for 1. But we got to get out of here. But one thing I want to mention with the active meditation
classes
with the active meditation. One thing I want to mention is just that what you can see there is kind of the overlap. There are a lot of like self-care kinds of literature and things you can read about. But in many respects, a lot of these things overlap, and you're trying to kind of accomplish the same things. And again, like, I think that the thing you can't really forget about with this stuff is a lot of times when we're not accomplishing these things for ourselves, you know, in terms of engaging our minds in ways that are leisurely, but still can provide some level of fulfillment and the dopamine hit, that we look to substances to make up that gap, because it appears that humans, we just need that kind of stuff, you know. So you got to come up with some stuff that you can do it in a way, ideally in a way that's intentional and that's fulfilling, because if not, you're going to end up doing it in a way that's compulsive and maybe harmful, you know? So, but I do want to wrap us up from there, man. We appreciate everybody for joining us on this episode of Call Like I See It. Subscribe to the podcast, rate it, review us, tell us what you think, send it to a friend. Until next time, I'm James Keys.
I'm Tunde Ogunlana.
All right, we'll talk to you next time.